Hey everyone, I'm here today with Chris McCabe of e-commerce Chris, and we're talking about all things going on in the world of Amazon suspensions and review abuse. So Chris, tell us what's happening.
Yeah, a hot topic since I think what got the ball rolling on the recent wave of enforcement was this highly publicized story about these large Chinese accounts that were taken down. Mpao and Aki are two of them. And then those were some of the big ones. This was in early July, I think, around the 4th of July. So it's been 2 months, but in the weeks since then, they've taken down a lot of other medium-sized or mid-range and smaller Chinese sellers that were doing the same things. So,
And so
I
what were
think
you seeing? What was happening there? Was it product insert abuse or more black hat type?
yeah, and maybe you can even share the link to the safety detectives article. That's where I first heard about this. It was a data breach. And as a result of the breach and information being shared, on the dark net and elsewhere, it came to light that these Chinese accounts and sellers were simply using black hat services to pay people for reviews, more or less compensating 100% illegal, non-compliant ways, 5-star reviews. The messaging with the services, the messaging with the buyers, it was all there for anyone to see. So that article uncovered it. Amazon was forced to act because that became a national story very quickly.
Right.
And it was also obvious who was doing it, and the fact that they were big sellers on Amazon. So Amazon historically didn't take down large sellers. I mean, over the years, I have heard from sellers asking us to help them reinstate who were like 30, 40, 50 million a year. That's not new.
Hmm.
But having it be this public is new. And having Amazon sending the message to everyone, of course, but also to larger accounts, which in the past, I think we all know sort of got a slap on the wrist or maybe a policy violation warning. I personally believe there's several large accounts that maybe got several of these warnings, but the reviews weren't even deleted, let alone the account wasn't suspended.
Hmm.
And there's a long backstory for that, but the bottom line is I think things have changed in the last 2 months because sellers are getting newly written messaging from Amazon, including new wording. So
With Q4 coming up, that's not really surprising. It seems like around this time every year we start to see some new trends happening. So what kind of new language are you seeing?
yeah, I mean, when people get the warning, or especially if they get suspended, there's a lot more emphasis on sales rank now. They used to say you can't
Mm.
inappropriately influence customer ratings, feedback, reviews, and manipulating sales ranks been on the message for the last couple of years. But the reference to artificially inflating web traffic, I mean, it's kind of vague in general, which is a little bit scary because people do promotions all the time, right, on their own
Right.
websites. And will that inflate your sales on Amazon? Impossible. All somebody has to do is search for your brand name on Amazon. But artificially inflating web traffic in illicit ways, I think, is what they're after. Are you positively inducing behavior
Hmm.
through messaging bots and many chat sequences? Of course, any kind of promotion on your website where there's a high discount and then you're sort of pushing people in the Amazon direction. They're also very focused on the third parties. They have mentioned it before. Now they seem to really be using the suspension process to get at what third party services you're using that aren't using best practices, that aren't using compliant methods. And of course, the seller takes the fall, not the service, right?
Right.
If you're breaking the rules, Amazon blames you, even if you were kind of, thinking you were doing some due diligence and you were told by that agency or company that it was okay. You didn't fact check what they told you. You didn't fact check their marketing claims. So
Right.
hiring third parties to improve rank or get positive reviews. And then the other thing I saw was compensating buyers for purchasing your products, including claim codes. So that
Mm.
specifically targets the whole rebate system, the giveaways that's 100% rebate after the fact. They're getting more specific. I mean, we all know Amazon messaging they love to be vague. They're not being vague on reviews of use anymore. I mean, I don't think they've been vague, for a while, but now they're really not being vague. There's no way you can complain like, I didn't know, you didn't tell me, this information wasn't publicly available. It's certainly available in the warnings they send. And then if it's too late and you get suspended, obviously you're becoming aware a little bit late at that point, but
Right.
I don't think you have cause to complain that this isn't publicly available anymore. It's, as a seller on Amazon, they've made it abundantly clear that you can't do some of these practices. So,
Right. It's incredible to me just to see how many services are out there that are still saying you can buy reviews, or, we're going to get you X number of positive reviews. I mean, just the fact that they're still operating with this environment is just kind of astounding.
yeah, I think they're
But
trying to pitch that they're making a workaround arrangement with you. You're not asking
mhm,
for a positive review, so you can do this giveaway. You're
right,
only asking for an honest review. You're only asking for an unbiased review. They're just borrowing ancient deprecated marketing language from 2 or 3 years ago that has no relevance for today.
right.
So if you hear some of these catchphrases, you're
It's the
watching
red
a
flag.
YouTube video or a podcast. Well, I mean, I think some people, and they do mention these, we've run through the policy on Amazon. These are compliant practices. I've seen these on YouTube, mostly because
Mhm,
sellers who get suspended, I say, where did you get this concept from? Where did you get this idea? And they send me a YouTube video link, and it's still up. So people are still watching it. Some of them have thousands upon dozens of thousands of views.
Yep.
And they will mention, they can't just skirt the topic anymore and not mention whether or not you'll get in trouble on Amazon. That's 2017, 2018. Back then, you could just avoid the whole topic. These days, they know they have to mention it, but they put time, effort, and energy in explaining how their method is still compliant. It's just that it's a very favorable interpretation of the policy from their perspective, not from Amazon's perspective. Otherwise, using
Right.
those techniques would not get you suspended as readily as it does.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we're out there fighting those messages all the time. And
Yeah.
then it causes a lot of confusion for sellers because they hear one thing and then they hear their friend got suspended because they were using some
Yeah.
service that seemed like it was on the up and up. And, we're kind of constantly fighting that message and explaining, here's how you follow Amazon's guidelines. Here's how you don't here's how you
Yeah.
avoid breaking the rules.
That must
And I
drive you
know.
crazy because people, well, this happens with me in my business too, but people put you in this alphabet soup of service providers, and they sort
Mhm,
of weigh you out like you're all sort of equal, and then who charges more, or
right.
who's more, offering more other things in the same package or whatever, but they don't understand the risks involved. And I'm kind of surprised. I don't expect everyone, by the way, to be like constantly reading CNBC, Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, scanning it every day, the tech pages, tech coverage for reviews of use stories. There's been a million of them. And so
Mhm,
they get reprinted, and they tend to have high click through and readership rates, and they tend to jump to other, MSN.com will start showing Wall Street Journal stories or Bloomberg stories. That means a bunch of people are reading them, not just sellers. So
right.
it's a nationally understood issue for people who buy, sell, invest in businesses, whatever. But I'm kind of confused at why sellers are still coming to me saying, I hired, Review Matrix, or I hired Review Maven. They mention these companies, they don't know anything about them. There's no
Mhm,
people. Like, I go to the websites, if the website's still up, I
yep.
go to the website, there's no humanity there. There's no like, I mean, maybe they lie and put stuff there like, we used to work at Amazon, and they didn't, right?
Mhm,
Or we've been doing this for years, and they haven't. They've only been up for a few weeks. But people are still going to like Fiverr and Upwork for reviews related help to get reviews. They're going to these random websites that show up on Facebook. They have no track record. They have no people on the website. I mean, of course, they're like chop shops.
right.
They're not expecting to last that long. If Amazon uses your account suspension to chase them away, they don't care. They'll come back in another form. They're already expecting that to happen. So there's
Mhm,
that part of it I don't understand. And then there's the part of it where it's the well-known companies and otherwise legitimate service providers who dip their toe into this pool and start recommending things just because they've heard it from somewhere else that people are doing it and not getting caught,
mhm.
and they're recommending it as a common practice. So I don't understand either of those.
Yeah,
Yeah,
me neither.
yeah,
So I think that brings up an interesting point because really at the end of the day, your business is on the line as a seller. It's and it seems like from what we were talking about before this call, you've
yeah,
seen some recent changes in how Amazon's handling the appeals process.
yeah.
What's
That's the
going on there?
most That's the most alarming part. Up until, I would say up until 2021 to an extent, but up until the July event when they started suspending all these large sellers, most people who hadn't been suspended for reviews abuse before were granted a second chance as long as they had the right information in the POA, the right amount of reviews were attached, the right information on the third-party services hired, and the techniques used, you could get reinstated. If you hadn't been suspended before at all, or if you hadn't been suspended for this. And it was the two-time losers and the reoffenders that I would say maybe in 2020, Amazon started deciding there would be no second chances for this. I've definitely heard from some sellers in past years who got second chances with reviews abuse. They were among the few, and you can't rely on something like that. As of this year, as of this summer, reoffenders, I don't take as clients anymore. I mean, I don't think there's any realistic chance they'll get back. I'm chagrined that there are service providers out there, sometimes well-known ones, who are telling those people that they can still get them reinstated easily, quickly, at all. And they're not getting those people reinstated. I've heard from a lot of those sellers. They're not sure what to do next because I'm unable to help them at that point. But they've not only been suspended in a way that can't be fixed, they've also paid out some money that they can't get back to some consultant who just told them, yeah, we'll get you reinstated. We do these all the time. So that's the reoffender group. Unfortunately, now I'm seeing first-time offenders who are calling account health reps, asking why they haven't seen a response to their appeal. I mean, Amazon ghosted them on a lot of the appeals, didn't even answer, or they answered with the generic, you haven't sent us sufficient information. Those people aren't getting back on either in larger numbers. And I think I know why. There's an Amazon reason that's not 100% on the seller side, but it just means that this is seller code of conduct related. And this is considered awful enough that there's a certain percentage of first-time offenders that will never get back, and they'll be denied, and they'll be told either to stop appealing because there's no point, or account health reps say phrases like, you have no path to reinstatement, or they're deliberately not responding to you because you've been final worded and you're not going to get another chance. So that is different for the last 4 to 6 weeks. I've seen several more cases like that. Does it mean they're all unrecoverable? No, it doesn't. I don't believe. There are some that are getting through on escalations, but multiple escalations and more weeks of effort and more time. It's taking us more time to help people like that. Some of it's the services you've hired. I think if you start naming horrible black hat companies in there, then Amazon kind of blanches when they read it. And they're like, why in God's name would you hire people like that? Partially because they know more about those companies than you do. They know they're black hat. They consider them fraudsters. They're probably annoyed that you gave them your money and that you fueled them as a company, as a black hat business. So some of it's the who you hired. So if you do nothing else, if you get nothing else out of this conversation, careful who you hire. Do your fact checking and your due diligence. We always talk about it, but then there's the odd arrangement of people who are just not hearing back, sending emails to Jeff, the random ways of appealing that are just sort of useless at this point.
Well, and Jeff's no longer there. So is that,
I mean, I'm sure that
still
Jeff
an
at
option?
Amazon, I'm sure those emails still go to executive seller relations, but that's kind of a one and done, or they just ignore those. The problem is seller performance or executive seller relations. Any of these account investigators reading these appeals anywhere in the company, even management level, they have an opportunity to ignore you now that they didn't really have before. They can say, oh, this is code of conduct. These people did something terrible. I don't need to waste time reading their appeal. I can completely justify sending a rejection. Like a seller performance investigator can get credit for an investigation. They have to do so many of these an hour, 13, 14, 15, whatever. They can get credit for yours, even if they don't read your POA, plan of action, even if they just dump you and move on. They can say, well, reviews abuse. I've talked to, I don't know how many account health reps with sellers on the line with me. And the account health reps are like, there's nothing here. There's nothing annotated. Seller performance didn't say anything. They said they rejected it. Like, it's clear it's been declined. No annotations, no denial notes. I hear that more and more on all cases now, just because the seller performance doesn't seem to be audited anymore on a manager level. They seem to be left to their own devices to do whatever they want. So there's fewer annotations anyway, but on the reviews of use cases, there's often no annotations, which means calling account health doesn't help you because they can't see. It's not that they're playing games and refusing to tell you something. A lot of times they can't see anything there. It's because there is nothing there. It's because they don't plan to reinstate you anyway. They plan not to even read the plan and to just discard it. That's kind of new too. In the past, I think they would review those POAs. Of course, they'd accept some and reject some like they would with any suspension. Nowadays, I think seller performance guys think they can kind of get away with this. Like, I don't even have to read it. This appeal can be thrown away and I can completely justify it based on the fact that this is reviews abuse and that's a major code of conduct violation.
Wow.
So that's scary. That means
Yeah.
there's some brands that are done.
Right.
That you might be talking to, that I'm talking to, that other people are hearing from. And now we know that brands of all sizes are being banished and closed for good. That's kind of new too. I mean, they've always closed people at all ranges. I've talked to $100 million sellers who were suspended. Not permanently though.
Mhm.
They eventually would get back up. Having a seller that does 40, 50, 60 million a year. I mean, what have they said? It's over 1 billion in lost revenue, lost sales just from the Chinese accounts so far.
Mhm.
Over the last 2 months, it's already up to 1 billion. So if they're willing to lose 1 billion on that, they're probably willing to lose your 30, 40, 50 million on your individual account. Especially if they think that you were, I mean, some people are still abusing reviews and manipulating sales rank in 2 ways, 3 ways, 4 ways.
Oh,
So
wow.
the plan of action that's part of the problem. The plan of action is so long. You have to include all this info.
Right.
And it's just, it becomes a too long didn't read scenario. Like if you're just doing one thing and you can say, we got these reviews, here they are, there's 45 of them from this one method using this one service that's a shorter POA. And it
Mhm.
also looks like you're not just out to cheat everybody under the sun.
Right.
Some of the ones we've heard from 5 ways, 6 ways, 7 different companies employed using 3 practices each. I mean, I can't write a plan of action where I describe 20, 21 different ways that you use 7 companies to do God knows what. It's not realistic. It's not realistic. Yeah. So
are you seeing in these cases, is it typically that they hired an outside company with the review abuse cases that are coming up where you're seeing the first time offenders not have a chance to appeal, or are there other things that they're doing? That is there anything that you
it's a
feel like
mixture.
a seller could do that they maybe wouldn't be aware that they
Yeah.
were? So what can we do to keep people from calling you, Chris?
Right.
I know you're a busy guy.
I mean, and yeah, well, I'm in, for your group, your customers, I mean, I'm happy to have a brief conversation with anyone about like, should I even bother appealing this, or should I even
Mhm.
try, or am I just done? I've been doing that already, so I'm happy to make myself available for that. In terms of other things not involving third-party services, it's the product inserts is the big thing now. We've talked about that a million times.
Yep.
A new angle I saw was that some people are acquiring, like aggregators are acquiring brands, and those brands might, I mean, this is just a random angle that's instructive as an example. They've got all these packages in FBA with inserts in them that are non-compliant, and that didn't come out in like the brand acquisition process.
Mhm.
We're starting to do all this due diligence and brand pre-acquisition work on brands before the aggregators buy them. And these kinds of issues are cropping up, which that might not be something that people would think about. So the FBA already has those packages there with the inserts in them. And unless you can sell through that inventory and not replace it with the same inserts, you could easily have a competitor buy from you, flag you for abuse, report you. Right now is a terrible time to be reported for insert abuse, but it's also a terrible time to be pulling FBA inventory out,
Right. Hard enough to get it there. And
that's the big, I know it's hard enough to get it in there in the first place. So it's like, that's the big dilemma now is people hiring us for even just a half-hour consult. I look at the inserts and I'm like, no, these are terrible. These have to go, especially the 5 stars at the top. I'm still seeing that. I don't know why.
Yep.
Or at the bottom. It doesn't matter where, up the side. It doesn't matter if you got 5 stars. It seems subtle. It seems minor, but it's not subtle and it's not minor. It's a bad thing to have on there. And I'm still seeing the things, contact us if you have a problem with your order. If you're happy with the product, please leave us a review. I'm still seeing that on the
Yep.
inserts, not so much in the messages sent to buyers.
Mhm.
But all the messaging that you and I talked about last year, the year before, in buyer seller messaging, all that messaging seems to have gravitated to the inserts. And that's like, all they have to do is go in and open up a box and FBA. I mean, that's like, you're really vulnerable if those aren't compliant, because it doesn't take forever for them to figure out what's on your inserts.
Right.
So,
And that is one of the most common questions that we get in webinars when we talk about the importance of following all the communication guidelines in your inserts. People will say, well, how can they tell? And we're like, Amazon wants to know something.
oh yeah. And it doesn't matter if it's a competitor who does a test buy and reports you. If it's a valid abuse complaint, they will act on it, and it's not a comment on your competitor.
Right.
And I know this well, because I've got companies hiring me to report their competitors, and they show me the insert and it's non-compliant. There's nothing illegitimate about that.
Right.
You should be, I'll take it a step farther. I mean, you should be doing a test order to see what your competitors are doing. And if they have those types of inserts, you should be reporting them, because you're actually helping Amazon solve a problem that's driving them crazy and that they're sick of hearing about. So you're kind of helping clean up the marketplace. You're helping Amazon, which is probably a good thing. And you're inadvertently helping yourself, because your competitor probably will get suspended, but it's a justified suspension. It's the same thing as reporting a competitor for a listing violation or a style guide violation or ASIN variations abuse or whatever is going on. I mean, it's a competitor, I get it, but those are violations, and those are creating bad buyer experiences. And we all know that what Amazon wants to do is protect buyer experience so that buyers aren't shopping elsewhere. They've wanted to do it for 20 years. So there's nothing wrong with that at all.
But do not leave a review for a competitor.
Yeah, but you don't have to. I mean,
Right.
that's like, if they're doing,
just don't even dip your toe into that.
Yeah. I mean, most people know, like, well, I didn't like their product, so it was an honest review. I mean, most people kind of graduated from that thinking a while ago.
Right.
Yeah, obviously don't hire services to leave negative reviews for your competitors, and don't buy from them yourself and leave a negative review. But you shouldn't need to do that anyway.
Right.
You should be able to handle that in your own sales funnel, sales process. And if they're doing something illegitimate, you can report them for it. That's the right way to handle it. Yeah. So aside from inserts and following some non-compliant methods by hired guns and third-party services, it's really just making sure you're not artificially inflating your sales rank with, if you have giveaways or high-level discounts on your website and there's some sort of redirect there, either to your Amazon page, like those things, and especially the sales funnels, the messaging, the bots, either of those things don't seem like they're much more than marketing and offering discounts. Like, we're just trying to do a sale. Some people are doing sales that don't really have a lot to do with their Amazon account, but they are directing traffic to their site. And then their inserts are directing traffic to their site. They're saying, contact us here. And somewhere on there might be a link to their Amazon page. I mean, Amazon's just tracking all this stuff much better now. They're taking the time to do it. They have more investigators to do it. So they have more headcount to spend time on it, unlike before. And they're more interested in doing it. So just be very, very careful how you manage these marketing campaigns, and be very careful about high discounts or giveaways that may bleed back into your Amazon sales.
Yep. And it's interesting to see, I know with brand registry, a lot of new features have rolled out recently, but one that I thought was really interesting was the brand referral bonus. So they're actually paying you in your account for sending external traffic to your Amazon site, which seems like a way to do some of those promotions without being, like Amazon's completely aware of what you're doing in that case. And that's probably a safer way to have external traffic coming to your listings also. So
I don't think they have a thorough understanding of even how they're approaching it now. I think they're just desperately trying to scratch and claw anything that seems like it's bad behavior. That could be a big motivation, is it could be like showing up in the media. Reporters, I mean, again, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, CNBC, they've been really good at following sales funnels, at looking at assessing positive reviews on Amazon and deciding which ones are fake, looking at the language in them. They're really good at finding these services and looking at what kind of sales pitches they do. You know, reviewers, I think they're hip to specific reviewers that are kind of fake and leaving negative reviews on 7 out of 8 in one category. And like, obviously they've been hired by the seller.
Yeah.
So these stories are more plentiful and are more detailed because reporters have upped their game in the last 2 years on how to track product reviews abuse. And as part of these articles, they go to Amazon PR, Amazon Media Relations, and get a comment from them or solicit a comment. Amazon used to say no comment, or they would say, oh, this is less than 1% of the reviews on the site. Have you or has anyone noticed that Amazon has seemingly stopped saying it's less than 1% of reviews on the site are fake? What happened to that phrase? They used that phrase
They're
consistently for 3 years, 2.5 years. Suddenly it's vanished.
Yep.
There's a reason for that. It's because there's been studies. I mean, there was a UCLA study a year ago. There have been other studies. Amazon, of course, discredited those studies. And they even went so far as to chase Apple to remove reviews meta, right, from the Apple store for tracking reviews because they didn't think it was legitimate data, which is fine. They have a right to dispute that or argue that. But clearly, they're also acknowledging that they've got a reviews abuse problem. And they even had a blog post about it a couple of months ago. So after they took down all those large accounts, they knew they had to write a blog and they knew they had to kind of come to the table with, we understand this is a problem. We know it involves social media. Me and some other people in the industry have been advocating that they partner with Facebook to do something about these Facebook groups that only exist to fake reviews on Amazon. I hear they're making some headway with that. It's all very behind the scenes, hush hush stuff. And they're not going to talk about it on the record, but I've just kind of heard through the grapevine that there's some progress being made. All that means is they're helping each other get rid of this problem by tracking how sellers are inducing positive reviews. So be very, very careful how you encourage somebody to assess your product. Don't say, oh, these are just product testers and they happen to leave good reviews. That's another one I see people doing. I went to a product tester site. I didn't go to a review service. I didn't use a review site. These are product tests. Yeah. Euphemisms. So
yeah.
Yeah.
And it is interesting seeing more with like the brand protection report that came out earlier this year. And it seems like Amazon is really trying to push that message of, we're here to protect sellers. We really want you to be brand registered so that we can help you keep your account safe and protect your brand. So it seems like just at the same time that they pivoted away from that 1% message, they're also pivoting more towards, we're here to help you combat these issues that we're definitely aware of, which has not really been what we've seen for the past few years. So that's been interesting too.
Yeah. I mean, brand registry doesn't really do what it's supposed to. They need to offer this concept, which is called brand exclusivity or brand priority, which is like you can protect your listings from outside influence, outside attacks, and ASIN contributions that are overwritten by other parties. A lot of listings are going to go down this Q4, and I'm kind of shocked that they haven't moved quicker to fill that loophole. But on the review side, they're trying to put this topic to bed.
Yeah.
So you don't want to be collateral, and you don't want to be, I totally understand that you need reviews and you need to be relevant on in search, searchability and in sales rank, and that you don't want to be on page 16 for a product. I mean, I understand.
Right.
And I wish Amazon would de-emphasize the relevance and the algorithm of product reviews, and maybe that would partially solve this problem, but that's not going to happen, or it's a story for another day. The only thing sellers can do now is make sure that they've got as many organic, clean ways of getting awareness about their brand out there as possible. Maybe not just on the ASIN level, like this is our best product, direct everyone to buy this product. We've seen sales dip on this product. We have to do something. We need more reviews. Okay. What about brand awareness? The more people know about your brand, the likelier they are to find that ASIN. You might not be directing them specifically to that detail page.
Right.
You might not be directing them to search for that particular product on your site, but what if they know your brand name better? What if your brand name sticks out? Like there are off Amazon marketing tips. This is one of the great things about, the Seller Velocity Conference we're doing here in Boston next month. And you guys, of course, are sponsoring. Thanks for your support.
Of course.
What are the reasons we got all these experts together? And they're not all necessarily only, Amazon only experts. They're marketing experts, they're business efficiency experts, they're how to write a good SOP that's effective to run your internal operations experts. We've got, many people attending who are well-known, like Theron Harmon of Harmon Brothers. He's not necessarily known all over Amazon, but he's obviously known for video marketing because his ads have been seen millions of times, right?
Yeah.
This is kind of the same thing. There are ways of making your brand known and making investments other than in paying some product review enhancement company to get the word out there in the world, not just on Amazon. But what happens? Product search, I think more than 50% of product searches originate on Amazon now, right? Amazon finally crossed the 50% threshold. What does that mean? Well, that means somebody hears about your brand on YouTube or on TV or whatever, and they search for you on Amazon. So they're going to find that top selling ASIN.
Yep.
That's one of the reasons I'm so excited about this conference, is because I think we're finally going to get that message out. And not necessarily from my mouth, since I'm not an expert in that area, but from somebody who's got a track record with that.
That's awesome. And that's coming up September 23rd.
Yes.
So,
all day
we
event.
have a discount code
ahead.
through Ecom Engine. So I'll include that in our YouTube description here. So if you're watching this before September 23rd and you want to attend, be sure to get our discount.
It's here in Boston. It's in the Seaport. We're partnering with Teikametrics on this, and the Seaport's kind of where it's at for Amazon land in Boston. If you haven't been to Boston, it's a great place. And September 23rd, there will, be no chance of snow in late September. So I can guarantee that. I can guarantee good seafood, but also it's a great one-day event. If you can't attend here in person, of course, there's a virtual ticket. We always have a live stream, but it's only for half of the conference content. For the breakout sessions, you have to be here in person. And I think the breakout sessions, especially this year, are going to be where the rubber really hits the road, rubbing elbows with these kinds of experts who know how to help you, promote and grow a business responsibly, efficiently, and reliably. This is not just a account suspension conference where I'm talking about that all day, or even listing appeals. I am one small segment of a much larger field of speakers that are very well respected in each of their areas. So we're looking forward to seeing people here on the 23rd.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time today, Chris. I know you're busy, so we'll let you get back to.
I'm going to get back to that article I'm writing for you.
Excellent. We'll post that along with this video, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.